The night before the storm, it went from a signal number 2 to the highest it could get. I would say 90 to 95% of the island was ruined, flattened, completely unlivable. From what I remember, there was one family member who had a livable living situation.
Welcome to the Water People podcast, where we talk story with some of the most adept and interesting water people on the planet. I'm your host, Lauren Hill, joined by my partner, Dave Rastovich. For us, this is a place to exchange not just ideas and practices, but stories, experiential knowledge gleaned from the aquatic adventures that shape us. We acknowledge the Bundjalung Nation, the traditional custodians of the land and waters where we work and play, who have cared for this sea country for tens of thousands of years. Respect and gratitude to all First Nations people, including elders past, present, and emerging. Let's raise a glass to something bigger than just great beer. Meet Stone and Wood, a brewery that thinks big and acts small. Today we're in conversation with pro surfer Josie Prendergast. Born in Siargao and raised in both Australia and the Philippines, Josie is a standout surfer on any craft, from 10-foot plus gliders to fishes to logs, and she's especially expert at nasal navigation on heavy logs. We caught up with Josie between surfs in Byron, where she talked us through finding early commercial success in the surf industry, finding belonging between two cultures, surviving the Philippines Supertyphoon of 2021, and aiding her community to rebuild after the disaster. Josie's latest edit, Expressions of Interest, is now streaming online. It's a film she produced with local filmmaker Grigsy as a tribute to the simple pleasure of wave riding and the special moments shared with friends in the water. We'll include a link in the show notes. We have a routine on this podcast. We always begin by asking about a time or experience after which you were never the same. Jose, do you have a story like that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, I feel like it's so hard to pinpoint it to one story, but I definitely think my childhood, I can never go back. Like, that to me is such a strong and core memory of my life now. I feel like during the day, probably 10 times a day, I think about my parents taking us to Suffolk Park and fishing and surfing all day, every day. Like, that was my childhood growing up in Byron and having this as home, and also Siargao as home, but we would go there every year for 2 months. So yeah, I feel like my childhood's pretty...
But you specifically think about your childhood here in Australia, not necessarily your childhood in the Philippines?
I definitely think about my childhood here in Australia because realistically that is where I learned how to surf. All my family are water people in the Philippines and we're surrounded by the ocean, but I've have the clearest memories of when I caught my first wave at Broken Head. You know, I remember fishing in Suffolk. So they're my core memories. It's not that I don't think about my memories in the Philippines, but I was born on Siargao and we moved to Byron because that's where Dad was. And we would just go there every year.
How did your parents meet?
My dad was surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was finding waves in the Philippines and met Mum there, and we were the first generation of half babies on the island, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm grateful.
How has it felt for you belonging to two distinct cultures? Does it mean you feel a doubled sense of belonging, or does it mean it's more complex than that?
I feel like, to be honest with you, only in the last 4 or 5 years have I felt really connected to my culture and my home here in Australia. I've always felt super strong to my connection in the Philippines, as it's my first language and all my family. But I think recently I've felt so strong here in Australia just because I might be out of school and I've had more time and more love for it. And I look back at my life and how special it was to grow up in Byron and the way that I guess I know Byron. It's completely different Byron to what it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel, during school and primary school, it was all I wanted to do was be in the Philippines. As soon as I hit high school, I was like, I want the Philippines, I want the Philippines. Maybe year 5, year 6, I want the Philippines, I want the Philippines. Like I have handwritten notes that I wrote to my mom on her birthday, like, Mom, I love you so much, even though you won't let me move to the Philippines. But it's been a funny one. I feel kind of torn with it because I have my Filipino morals and values and the way that a Filipino tends to think, not generalizing. And then I also have like my Western Australian side of me that, is a little bit more open and I would say empowering. Like I feel like that helps me in my Filipino culture too.
You've said that growing up with split time between Australia and the Philippines has, quote, allowed you to have an altered sense of what privilege means.
Yeah.
And that also, quote, your Western side has taught you that you're beautiful because you're brown.
Yes.
And I thought this was such an interesting life experience because we often think of Western culture as exclusive, as oppressive toward people of color. And your experience has actually been different than that.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic too because I feel like I say I grew up in both because that's my memories. I mean, obviously I did all my schooling in Byron, but we would go to the Philippines every year or two. It's one thing like in the Philippines, I go there and they think I'm white. I'm quite tan. I feel like I look Filipino and I'm so proud to be brown. I think brown is beautiful. I think all colors are beautiful, but over there, even until this day, I still have like my little cousins being like, oh, Auntie Jos, you're so beautiful because you're white. And I'm like, have to teach them. I'm like, no, like you're so beautiful. We are all so beautiful. Like I just remember 2 of my little cousins telling me that just before I left to come back to Australia. I was just so confused and I'm just like, it's such a shame. But I do think there's so much change and like since more Filipino women have been surfing and embracing their color, there's been such a shift within the last 5 to 10 years.
It really speaks to the unrealistic beauty standards that we're expected to hold ourselves to. Whether we're brown-skinned, we need to be lighter.
Yeah.
If we're light-skinned, we need to be browner. If we're skinny, we need to be bigger. If we're larger, we need to be small. Like it's hard.
And here in
everyone.
Australia, I've always been praised for like my tan skin, Everyone's been like, oh my God, you've got beautiful brown skin. And then in the Philippines, they're like, you're so white and beautiful. And I'm like, I just want everyone to love themselves the way that we should love ourselves. But I do try to help the girls and make sure that they're, get the opportunity to feel beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
What do you think will help shift the culture there for those young girls?
To be honest with you, on the island, there's a lot of female surfers and sometimes there's more than men, which is incredible. Yeah. Like that has shifted in the last 2-3 years where there's just so many girls surfing, so many brown, beautiful girls surfing. But I will say that there is a huge culture in the Philippines and in Asia in general where they really idolize their superstars or celebrities or their actors and actresses from their country. I still go on Instagram or whatever and there's incredibly famous people in the Philippines still promoting skin whitening creams and products. And I will say I used to use it when I was younger because I was like, that was part of me too, When I was younger, a lot of people would be like, don't get too dark. Yeah. Like when I was in the Philippines, don't get too big. Don't do this, don't do that. But like I go online and there's countless amounts of celebrities still promoting skin whitening and all these products. And I just think it comes to the root of what we're looking at. These are people you go on the TV and it's there. And I will say, if you look at Filipino television, most of the actors are half. They're not. There are full Filipinos, but most of the actors are half. Most of the beauty queens are half. Most of the celebrities are either half Filipino or it really shows that they've got more Spanish in them from history, but there's not that many full Filipino looking people, even when, because pageantry is so big in the Philippines. A lot of the women there, they're always half. Like my whole life, I've always been told, you have to go for Miss Universe, Miss Philippines, Miss Universe. And my whole life, I've always been like, but, I mean, I'm not trying to like degrade myself, but I'm like, but don't you just want a full Filipino to go for Miss Universe Philippines? Like, I would just love to see that. I mean, I know there has been in the past, but just like it would be awesome to see a dark-skinned Filipino, because Filipinos are dark.
Yeah.
They are dark
island
skin,
people, like your skin's got to be able to cope with that environment.
Like my family is dark and they're beautiful. My friends are dark and beautiful. And I'm not saying that everyone else is not, but I just think there has to be a shift with, I don't know, what we see on the TV and what we click on our phones.
What we value, what we praise as beautiful, because that's what the TV is telling us.
Yeah, we're all beautiful. And if you go on the TV as a young little girl, and that is what my little cousins were saying. It's like, here's skin whitening products, like as an ad on TV. Like, it's obviously not going to teach you to love yourself.
Yeah. You were speaking before about your values as a Filipina and your values as an Australian. Where do they overlap and where do those values clash?
I mean, it's, again, shifting, but the women are a lot more quiet, whereas in Australia, like over there, you're kind of sheltered. Filipino girls are very sheltered.
Are there very strong gender roles that people don't break out of so much?
Yeah, so men have their jobs, women have their jobs, and it's all a little bit different now. But for instance, like my Australian side or my Western side, you grow up in school being able to explore feelings and being able to be like, how are you? Are you okay? Like mental health is a discussion.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, that's not a discussion.
Because it doesn't need to be, or because that language isn't there yet?
It's like it's a conversation I have with a lot of people, because it's like you talk to family, for instance, say in the Philippines, if I was sad, there's no way I'm going to tell anyone I'm sad, because I feel like it's not what I've grown up with there. And I think that brings into, I mean, still I wouldn't do that in Australia because maybe that's what I'm used to. But then when I'm there and someone else is sad, my Western side teaches me to be strong for them and be like, it's okay to be sad. Like, it's okay to talk. Not everything is perfect. You know what I mean? It's just different cultures and different ways of doing things. Like in the Philippines, we're open and loud in some ways, but very closed off in other ways. Like I feel like if you try to have a mental health conversation, that doesn't exist. I don't know if it's in the thought process, like people have feelings, but you try to talk to someone about, I'm not sure, therapy. They'll be like, what is therapy? What is that? Get over it,
Yeah. Thank you for helping us understand a little more, because those are the kinds of conversations that you might not get to have even if you're spending a lot, weeks or months at a time visiting a location as a tourist, as a visitor. You don't get those kind of insights into those fundamental family value differences.
But mind you, I speak from my experience of someone from the island. Yeah. It's very different from someone on the island versus someone who's grown up in the city in the Philippines. So I can only relate to my feelings and my relationship with it because it's a different way of living still. Like on Siargao versus in Manila, there's a different level of education, a different level of like all of that. So, you can be exposed to more things in certain areas.
Yeah. I feel like there's still quite a strong tendency to romanticize or idealize traditional island cultures and think of them as perfect and virtuous and whole. And do you do that? Do you sit in Suffolk Park in your house with your family and just go, oh, I wish I was on the island with my family because life is simpler or more straightforward, or the community is stronger?
Yeah. In Australia, it's my immediate family. except for my big brother who's in Rome, and my dad, and then my dad's brother. But in the Philippines, we've got like the biggest family, so that sense of connection is almost a little bit like broken. And I mean, it's never broken, but I always feel a little bit lost if I'm not like next to family. And you'll know with Filipinos, they do not like being alone. We always need family. But I feel like I will say when I was growing up, I used to think of family and the locals, like I wouldn't feel sorry for them, but I'd feel like they didn't live the greatest life. And now that tourism is quite strong on Siargao, I look at them and I'm like, I think of them as the privileged people because they live such a simple, beautiful, happy life.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need to have everything that we crave in the Western world, but they have so much love. And I feel like that's really important. I guess it's funny being able to understand both cultures and also knowing the language and everything. And there's a lot of foreigners who go to the island and you kind of look at them and it's like, they're like, poor local people, poor this, poor that. And it's like, they're just living their life. They're, you know, you don't need to like look down on them because I feel like a lot of the time people, it's not as if they're trying to, but they just think of third world countries like that, you know. But
Yeah.
I look at my family and they're all happy. I look at my relatives and neighbors and friends and they're all really happy. Obviously, it's a different life and things could be different, but the things they're sad about are some things that we just crave, you know?
Yeah. If you're someone who spends a significant amount of time traveling like you do, you're bound to hit hiccups along the way, sometimes way more than hiccups. Will you talk us through the super typhoon of 2021 that you weathered and the work that experience set in motion for you?
That was Typhoon Odette. Craziest time of my life. It was during COVID, really. So we had spent, I think, 2 years not being able to see family. And for us, that's a really long time and a really isolating time, specifically for my mum.
She's one of 11, is that right?
One of 11, originally one of 14.
Wow.
Yeah, but what she's like, that was the normal for all the locals on the island. Like if you meet any of like the long locals, including our family and all the other families, they're all like one of 15, one of 11. Minimum is like 8 sometimes. So that connection and just like that strength to your siblings. If you see someone alone, it'll be weird because we love being with people.
Yeah.
That's in our hearts, is to like be with people and be connected to your family. But yeah, so during COVID, it was isolating enough and we decided to surprise the family for Christmas and had to do a week in quarantine in Manila. And then we flew and surprised the family and it was like a really, really big surprise. Everyone was so shocked, like crying. You know, I saw my uncle and mum reuniting and they were in tears pretty much. And for me, that was like a time where I genuinely was so scared that I would never be able to see my family again. I'm sure a lot of people were like that during COVID, you know, so It wasn't, you know, you're not alone in that sense. And we have this running joke over there that we don't do any more surprises because we don't want another typhoon. They always say, don't surprise us, you brought the typhoon. So it's a running joke there now. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, it was really, 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 really crazy.
Did you see the forecast? Like, could you see that a storm was coming, but it didn't look that severe and then it just got really severe?
So the night before the storm, it went from a signal number 2 to the highest it could get. Yeah. And then pretty much woke up and Mum didn't want to leave the house and she was like, nothing bad is going to happen, don't worry. And I was like, freaking out and everyone had evacuated. And as the typhoon was starting to hit, my cousin came and got us, who has a car. And he was like, you're coming with us. And so like trees had already fallen down, but it wasn't at the strength of it.
So rain, wind, surf. Is there big surf at this point?
Big surf. Yeah, so we evacuated.
And where? Where did you evacuate to on the island?
We evacuated to the mountain area where my uncle has family. And we did that because the last typhoon, I believe, was 1984 Typhoon Nitang. And that hit in the nighttime. And with the typhoon, it was high tide. So a lot of people died because they drowned and there was, just water.
Yeah.
With typhoon came really strong, heavy waves with the tides. And so we went to the mountain area. We had family dispersed everywhere, There's too much of us to all cramp into one place.
Yeah.
Got hundreds of family. But we got, in a sense, it was really, really bad because it was the worst signal, the strongest signal a typhoon could be. And I would say 90 to 95% of the island was ruined. Like, all houses were ruined. I think in my family there was only one house.
Like flattened.
Completely flattened.
Unlivable. Completely unlivable.
Completely unlivable.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, pretty traumatic, pretty wild. But also, like, it was so incredible to see how the community stood up. Like, I remember pretty much crying in tears the whole time of the typhoon. And we were holding a mattress to the window, and I was just like the only one crying, really, and a few of the mothers, and there were newborns and all that, but just crying my eyes out. And my uncle was like, drink this, stop crying. And it was like a bottle of rum, and it just made me cry even more. And I honestly remember thinking, like, oh my God, I didn't even get to say bye to my dad. I didn't get to say bye to Taj, my brothers, anyone in Australia, because no one realized the severity of it.
Like, you thought you were going to die.
Oh yeah, Mum and I we were like, I just remember vividly being like to Mum, we didn't even get to say bye to Dad.
What are you hearing outside? Like, so I'm from Florida and we get hit by hurricanes more frequently than the Philippines. And I've been through a few, not as strong as what you're describing, but even so, even the weaker storms, the wind is so strong. You're hearing branches break and big trees go down and roof panels flying off, and it's like quite loud. Yeah, you're almost hearing the wind whistle. Like, I have videos of my phone. I was trying to have battery on my phone in case I could talk to someone, but we had obviously no power, and they cut out everything. But I have videos of my phone of just houses flying away, trees flying away. It was pretty freaking crazy. And then the typhoon ended up, like, it lasted hours, and it was still really strong winds, but it had quietened down. And my uncle and his son, an hour or two before us, had walked all the way to General Luna, which was like, I think at the time, 2 hours, just climbing up and down trees and over power lines and everything. Yeah. And then my mum decided that she wanted to go check on the house. And I was like, so mad at my mum. That whole day I was like, you didn't want to evacuate. And then she's like, okay, we're going home now. And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to leave her alone. And so all the women walked as well. And that was like 2 hours of walking, and just like everything flattened. But it was, people crying and then people laughing, like, holy shit, that just happened. People drinking. It was really scary and really, really sad. But if you were there, you would have just seen the strength of everyone, like, coming together, hugging, being like, are you okay? People laughing, like, I can't believe we survived. Let's have a drink. Yeah, and so we ended up getting to my house and my mum's house, and the whole top floor of my house had flown away, had actually flown onto my uncle's house. So I completely ruined their house as well. You didn't.
And my mum's house is just like gone, all the roof and everything, like unlivable. Yeah. When I say unlivable, I from what I remember, there was one family member who had a livable living situation. Okay. So we had to stay with them.
So then they had 100 people living in their house?
No, it was just
because all of your family, like, where did everyone else go?
Yeah, well, after the typhoon, it was just complete sun, not a single drop of rain, So everyone, as soon as it finished, the next day, everyone was just trying to rebuild, grabbing everything, like, that was just it. It was the day after. And
you got a flight out fairly soon after a humanitarian flight?
I think 4 4 days after we got offered a flight out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave, but I felt bad using our resources. Like, what was lucky with the typhoon, amongst the horribleness of it, we got lucky that it hit us in the daytime so we could see what was happening. Typhoon Nitang happened in the nighttime. Obviously back then, no forecast, no understanding. We could somewhat say there was a typhoon on the way. Yeah, so it hit us in the daytime, we could see, and it was low tide.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Even though
big.
the water was still there, it was low tide.
That makes a big difference.
So no one
doesn't it?
drowned, nothing like that. I believe there was only a couple of people who died in Siargao during the typhoon, but there was a lot of people who died after the typhoon. Like, I know a few people. And that was the hard part, was I didn't want to use the resources. Even though I wanted to be with my family, I knew that I had to get out and help. And it was really scary for me to ask for help, like donations and everything.
You took to social media, didn't you?
Yeah, during a time where COVID was happening and all of that. I just was like, oh. And then I'm like, I can't, I have to do it. But yeah, so we did that, and we ended up having to stay in Manila for, I believe, a week or two. I think we had 3 weeks to 4 weeks in the Philippines. That was the plan. But we got hit by the typhoon 3 or 4 days in, and then got the flight out and had to stick to our original flight from Manila to Australia, I think.
Yeah.
It's all a bit of a blur to me.
I bet.
I lost so much weight after that, and I couldn't put the weight back on until I went back to the island. So, like, for the time that I was apart, I had lost so much weight, I think, from the trauma and the stress of it. And I was like trying to gain weight. And then as soon as I got back 9 months to a year later, I just became healthy again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I was like, oh my God, the human body is wild, you know? It's like all the signals, everything.
It all lives in the body, doesn't it?
It's just crazy. But yeah, it was.
Well, so you took to social media, you were fundraising and trying to get resources to people on the island.
Yeah.
And you were incredibly successful.
Yeah, honestly, I did not expect it. I can't remember what was my goal. I believe it was $30,000 to $50,000. And we got almost $100,000, which was really, really incredible, and I was so grateful for that. But it was also very stressful holding on to that money, and because it was going to my account, I was like having to make separate accounts, and sending it back to the Philippines too was hard. But I had a friend to help me, and we did so many runs for supplies, just everything. And so for the kids, for the people, we built houses. Just, yeah. I look back at that and I'm like, oh my God, we did do a lot.
You did incredible work.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have done it without everyone who donated.
But it took someone to stand up and gather all the resources, and you did that. That was very brave and generous.
Just like everything. We had community. We'd get vegetables. I had family in the other area that didn't get affected, and we'd send them there and then bring them back with all these veggies from the donations, and people could line up and get food and da-di-da-da. So it was pretty crazy and great.
What's the status of the community now? Have most people rebuilt? Is General Luna back to what it was before the typhoon?
If I'm honest with you, it looks like it's better than before the typhoon.
Wow.
It's really, really crazy. In a sense, for some people, it was a blessing. Like for those who had always had Nipa roofs, which are just the local roofs out of Nipa. Yeah. They had tin roofs now. They had cement. You know, there was so many donations, not even just from me, but from countless amounts of sources. Like people could build solid foundations, you know? So it's almost like a blessing in disguise. No one, it's obviously horrible and scary to go through that, but a lot of people came out with stronger homes, and a lot of NGOs helping like show people what to do. And so if you look on the island now, you would not be able to tell that there was a typhoon. Wow. It's like you would not be able to.
Please stay tuned while we take a quick break to acknowledge the folks who help make our podcast possible. Let's raise a glass to something bigger than just great beer. Meet Stone & Wood, a brewery that thinks big and acts small, right from the heart of Byron Bay. Stone & Wood isn't just about brewing beer, it's about building a community. Certified B Corp and driven by environmental and social responsibility, they're all about making a positive impact one sip at a time. Their philanthropic arm, the Ingrained Foundation, supports local grassroots organizations, channeling funds and volunteer hours straight into the communities they call home, focusing on environmental and social causes close to the heart. Here's to Stone & Wood for crafting exceptional brews and for making a tangible difference in our Northern Rivers community. Patagonia is in business to save our home planet. Founded by Yvonne Chenard in 1973, Patagonia is a surf and outdoor apparel company based in Ventura, California. As a certified B Corp and a founding member of 1% for the Planet, the company is recognized internationally for its product quality and environmental activism, as well as its contributions of nearly $230 million to environmental organizations. Patagonia's unique ownership structure reflects that Earth is its only shareholder. Profits not reinvested back into the business are paid as dividends to protect the planet. Futures makes the first surf fins from recycled fishing nets. Alpha Net Plus is an innovative collaboration between Futures Fins and Borreo, blending carbon and discarded fishing nets. To date, they've transformed more than 35,000 kilos, that's about 77,000 pounds, of discarded fishing nets into new Alpha fins at their headquarters in Huntington Beach, California. Nets that would have otherwise ended up in the ocean. Made for high performance and tested by the best, from our very own Dave Rastovich to friend of the podcast, John Florence, Alpha is available in a wide range of fins for those who want to make a difference with every wave you catch. Learn more at futuresfins.com. The best summer surf seasons go hand in hand with fried eyeballs. Looking perpetually red-eyed might be an indicator of good times, but it also hurts. Good sunnies are non-negotiable, but ours inevitably get jumbled in the beach bag and the lenses get shredded by sand. Child, that's CHILDE, Eco Eyewear reimagines the way we use sunglasses. Instead of tossing out frames because of scratched lenses, the Child for Life program offers free lens replacement up to 12 months from purchase and for a small fee thereafter. Child makes sunnies and prescription glasses from plants, not petrol. It's eyewear that's made to last and able to be repaired for a smaller energy footprint. Let's reimagine the culture of disposability together. Learn more at childeyewear.com. In the past, Josie, I feel like maybe you've been misrepresented as a model who surfs, but anyone who knows you knows that you are 100% a surf rat who sometimes models. How have you made sense of those sometimes conflicting identities as you've grown from someone who started being valued for her beauty in her teen years, which is complicated enough, and then growing into the amazing woman you are and balancing being an athlete with being in front of the camera? How have you held that?
I mean, I used to get really upset because I would get so many messages all the time being like, are you a model or a surfer or you're a Billabong model that can surf? And I'm like, no, guys, I'm signed as an athlete. My contract is an athlete. I'm an athlete. And so that was like such a thing for me for quite a while there. And I really tried to push myself to just like post more surfing, do more surfing, and just push for that direction. Like I can't obviously control the minds of the viewer. And at the end of the day, I do Billabong campaigns, and I have been doing Billabong campaigns since I was 15. So yeah, it's like it's an interesting one. I do think now people acknowledge me for surfing.
Oh, well, you're an incredible surfer by any standard. And I just want to be really clear and specific about that. Like you are technically an incredible surfer, not only on a longboard, but on littler boards too. And I've been so stoked seeing you transition your surfing from primarily longboarding to tube hunting, getting on 20s, taking different lines. For me, you are just a shining example of how women's surfing can be very different than men's surfing, but still super skilled. Like maybe not as focused on verticality or power, but flow and grace and rhythm and all of these other elements that like, that's how I want to ride waves, you know? So I love you for your surfing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That makes me blush. Yeah. I've honestly pushed so hard for my surfing and pushed so hard to be able to at least try ride different boards. And I think with the way surfing is going, like, it's a weird time for surfing. I think
How do you, in what ways for you?
it's just a different time, you know? Like, I mean, Billabong's been bought again. It's not just that conversation. I think a lot of surfers are always talking about the changes in surfing, as also we transition through the changes of social media, marketing on social media. So it's just a different time. And I don't know, I'm trying my best, and I know a lot of people are trying their best, and I think a lot of people in the free surfing circle of that are trying their best, but it's obviously a really strange time. It's a time that I feel like is a little bit different to more than the other times, because there's been a lot of transitions within the surfing industry, but this one does feel a little different, and I think we're all just trying to like go with it and stick to what is true to us and surfing to us. And I've always wanted surfing to be fun, and I've always wanted to get more people out there, get more girls out there. And I actually didn't grow up riding a longboard.
I didn't know that.
I learnt on a shortboard. I was a shortboard girl for a while there.
Oh.
Yeah, Dad used to buy secondhand garage sales shortboards, and we just grew up shortboarding at Suffolk. And then he got this secondhand Arawara longboard to share with my brothers, and we couldn't get off.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it's been fun to transition back into, like, I mean, I'm definitely not going to go on the short board and like throw down any crazy tricks, but it's been fun to go smaller.
Yeah. I think what you've done is so exceptional because, and I wanted to ask you about this, from the outside, it seemed like some of the brands you were working with were really steering you toward the modelly side of things, and which as a young person is very attractive because you're often paid much better than if you're just an athlete.
Yeah.
But how was that for you? I always wondered, would your surfing be different had you been valued for your surfing as much as your modeling? Like, did it feel that way to you, or did it not feel that way to you, that your surfing wasn't being valued as much by the brands you were working with?
I feel like growing up, I had a lot of like compliments, and I think when you can surf and you can model, you can gear towards that direction.
Yeah.
But I've never, like, I don't mind modeling. Like,
Yeah.
I feel very grateful for my surfing life and just to live and breathe surfing. So for me, I don't mind modeling. Like, it's taught me a lot as well, and it is something that I do and I do enjoy doing, but I have stuck to the core of me, and that is surfing. And I feel like if I didn't stick to that core part of me, I could have gone in a different direction.
A lot of surfers that we were on teams with weren't able to keep
Yeah.
that sense of core love of surfing because they were sidetracked by other opportunities, other ways of presenting themselves that didn't necessarily turn out that great.
Yeah. I just like, I love surfing and I know everyone does. I don't know. I just like, it was one thing growing up that I really, really, really wanted to just keep part of me, because I've always in the Philippines had been told to join Miss Universe, always all this modeling things. Like when I was 15, I spoke to a modeling agent, and she basically told me that I had to stop surfing because my muscles were so big, and that just like ruined me.
Well, and this is part of the conversation that I wanted to get into, is that like to be a successful model, oftentimes your body has to be quite different than it is to be a really proficient surfer.
Yeah.
So it's actually a tricky line to dance.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that was being asked of you too.
yeah, it was something that was there because I had been getting scouted by multiple agencies.
Yeah, I remember
and
there was a whole
everything.
frenzy. It was a whole Like there were all of these brands and agents
It
coming
was just
for
a
you.
weird time. I mean, I don't know if it was a weird time, but it was just like, I feel like social media was starting to really pick up, and I was so young. Like I was 15, 16, getting asked these questions and being told, oh, your muscles are too big. We'd love to have you, but you got to stop surfing. And I actually tried to stop surfing.
Did you?
Yeah, and I tried to lose so much weight to the point where it like completely messed with me. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But the
That's
core,
that's almost always the expectation.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that to do that to a young girl is pretty crazy.
It's cruel.
Yeah. But the core essence of me and also my childhood and how my parents were towards me, like I can't think of a better childhood. I grew up surfing, fishing, skating in Suffolk Park, doing the most random things. Like I always stick to that core part of me, and like it's almost like my inner child. I want to complete that because it completes me and my happiness.
Yeah.
So I feel like I could have been steered in a different direction, and I've also always had a lot of older people looking out for me. Always. I've always had that within Billabong. I've always had people making sure I am going in the right direction and I am choosing things that are beneficial for my future and for my heart. But I do like having those people who are older and wiser to help you has honestly been such a great gift for me. And like growing up here, the women I would see in the water was you. You know, there was like, I had just like so many people just like pushing for me to go in the right direction. It was like a nudge, you know?
Yeah.
Friendly nudge that was pushing me in the right direction. It was, I mean, obviously I had people like trying to push me in a different direction, but I had such a good group of people who I admired push for that direction that I have had chosen, I guess. I mean, there weren't like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I do think when you're surrounded by people who are pushing for the best for you, it's easy to follow.
Yeah. When you're in front of the camera in a photo shoot or a film, you might end up being the star of a particular project, but still have zero creative input. You might not even like what the results are or feel that they represent you or what you stand for at all. I've had this experience in the past with a film or a shoot that ultimately I found really cringy.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize that you don't necessarily have creative control when people include you in projects. I was wondering if you've had an experience like that, and also basically what has inspired you to start taking on your own projects, really taking, and this is so exciting to see in you, you're taking the reins of your own storytelling, making your own films in the way that you want to make them. How did you get here?
I mean, I definitely agree with you that there's been plenty of photo shoots that I've done and I'm just like, ugh, cannot even look at myself. Like, who is that? Or it's like, that's a pretty bad angle. But I guess this will be 10 years with Billabong for me. So it's gotten, yeah, it's a long time.
And it has to be said that you're one of the very few Billabong female athletes who have made it through this massive change in the industry.
It still could change, you know.
Of course. Well, anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hype myself up.
Well, I'll hype you.
But yeah, I guess so. It's been like an interesting time seeing people come and go, and I've like, it's been sad like losing a lot of people, and also a lot of people who have been there for me since I was a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So that's been tricky, but I can only look for the best and ride that wave of change and see how it goes, and also try to stick true to who I am, and hopefully that's good.
I'm thinking about people like Steph Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Who are,
she's amazing.
They end up being mentors and role models, the women in positions of power in companies where there are a lot of decisions made by men, but a few key women in roles of decision-making can make such a huge difference to your trajectory in a brand, right?
Steph has been there for me. Oh my God, I love her. I could cry. She's amazing, but she has done amazing things for Billabong Women's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of change.
So just to steer you back, tell me about taking on your own films and what's gotten you to this place instead of other people just making films about you. You're producing. You're saying, okay, I'm choosing this filmer and we're going to surf this wave and these are the shots I want to get.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
I just think like being able to create my own films and being able to, I guess, dictate what goes in that is really important for me. And I'm also very lucky that I get that with Billabong. Like I do have this part where I am able to pitch to them my idea. And I will say I'm not like the most creative person, but if I can choose to make a surf film with this budget, I'm going to make a surf film. And they've always been very supportive of that. But I think I'm also super picky with what I do now, aside from like my main sponsor is Billabong, you know, and I'm always going to show up and I'm always going to be there and shoot and surf and do all of that. Like that's my passion and love. But with other projects, I'm really, really picky. Like I think it's really important to stick true to yourself. Even though if someone's offering you like good money or whatever, I just don't think I could change myself just for that. Like I really want to make sure my presence is me and I am me and I'm doing this because I love surfing and I'm not doing it because for other reasons, you know. So picking and choosing projects that align with you and are really important. Like I've been offered plenty of projects, but it just doesn't align with me, I guess. And
do you find that easier to do, to edit? When I think about life and adulthood and, you know, if you've had success in any aspect of life, saying no, knowing when to say no is just as important as knowing how to say yes. Has it gotten easier as you've gotten older, though?
I used to be just a yes person, just to like make everyone feel good. I'd be yes, 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 sure, sure, sure. Like just like young and naive and just almost like letting people take advantage of me. But I think it's so important to just stand your ground and think about things, think about what it does for you and what is good for you. And I think it's definitely gotten easier to be able to just be like, actually, this isn't going to sit well with me. But with the filmmaking, the films I've been able to do in recent years, it's been really fun because it's something that I can pitch and it's always it has always been surfing. It's what I want to do. It's not like I'm going to pitch a modeling, you know, like.
Some people do that.
And each to their own. But I'm just like, it's so fun to surf and why not film with people you love, you know, get people you love on board. So I think that's what I want to keep doing more. Doing that and have other people involved. Obviously budgets are different, but.
Well, and it's so important. I hope you don't downplay the contributions that you've made because there aren't a lot of women, especially free surfing women, who have the opportunity to make just action edits. Yeah. There aren't that many anymore. Yeah. So for the generations coming up, boys and girls, we need surfers like you to show us how we should be doing it.
Yeah. That's nice. It's actually good to hear that because I feel like there's been so many times where I know I live a very happy life and I get to do what I love. But there's a lot of times where people have always been like, oh, you shouldn't feel sad. You live the best life. But I'm still a human. So sometimes I try to downplay things just to be a bit more relatable, even though it does take up a lot of my energy and a lot of, you know, I want to do it right. Surfing is what I love and I get to do and I'm so grateful for that. I just want to keep surfing, keep creating short films of surfing and try to, you know, include more people or it's all new to me still as well.
How fun and exciting.
Yeah,
like
it's
isn't
so
that
exciting.
One of the joys of getting older is like you get to have more experiences in life and stretch yourself.
Yeah.
You recently made an edit with your fiancé, Taj Richmond, called Shotgun. Why make something together?
It was actually McTavish's idea. I mean, I wish I had... look, if I was creative, I would be making really... I'm downplaying myself again.
I get to see you hang 10 all the time, and I can tell you that's very creative.
So McTavish recently put Taj on the team, which is really cool. Super stoked about that.
He's an incredible surfer.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Beautiful
So
to watch.
Yeah, I was really excited that he gets to be on the team, and I don't know, it was just something that they thought was nice and they executed it really nicely, and we had a lot of fun filming for it, and it's also just like so natural to us. Like Taj and I have known each other for 12 years. So it's a pretty long time since we were 12 years old.
Half your life?
Half my life. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, it's been fun to like do projects like that, you know, and have brands support you and wanting to do that with you, I think is really nice. Like I feel like it's so important to feel supported by the companies you're with.
Yeah.
I think if you can have a relationship and a good relationship with them, it's so nice. And I've actually had McTavish longer than Billabong, you know. I've been with McTavish for a long time and I've always felt so much support from them.
Did Bob used to make boards for your dad? Did I read that somewhere?
I don't.
Maybe that's not true.
I don't know. I think I have read that somewhere.
It might not be true.
Yeah, Dad's been here for a long time. Like
Yeah.
Dad first started living in Byron in the 60s and then left, and then he's been in Byron for 40 years. So
He would have
time.
had a McTavish somewhere in
Totally.
there.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's good that Taj is on there though. I'm
Yeah.
stoked.
Yeah.
I feel like he's great for McTavish.
Oh, he's just such a beautiful... So he's a surfer that when I think about a perfect day at Broken and the surfers who make everyone turn their head as he
He's like
rides
that.
by, he's that surfer.
He's that surfer.
Yeah.
Kind of like, in a sense, makes me upset. I like get jealous. I'm like, okay, why can't I just get easily tubed like that? I'm here like forcing it and hunting it, whereas he's just like so effortless.
He is. And I feel like you're getting there too. I wanted to ask you about comparing men's surfing and women's surfing. Like, where does that conversation sit for you right now? Does it matter? Is it relevant? Is it irrelevant?
When I think about it, it's definitely different. Like I feel like in women's longboarding, I would say there's an upper hand for women.
Yeah.
But in shortboarding in general, there's an upper hand for men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when I think about it, it's very confusing because I don't know that much about shortboarding.
Yeah.
And I'm in the longboard world trying to also figure out my smaller-ish board riding.
But you barely ride longboards anymore, do you?
Oh my God, not this year.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, not this year, honestly. I should get back into it. It's just been so fun riding small boards.
What do you like about it?
It's just a different level of excitement. Like longboarding has always made me feel calm and like it's so chill, and it's always going to be like such a big part of me. But small board riding just like opens up a different level of excitement and a different, like I honestly feel like I have become a frother because of small board riding. Like
Yeah.
I've always loved surfing, don't get me wrong. But now, if you spoke to me like 5-6 years ago, I'm like, yes, I love surfing. It's the best thing in the world. Now it's like I'm living and breathing waves. See, like this is not something I would have said. Like,
Yeah. What was the change for you? Because I've had this experience too, but later in life, after I had our son, that was the changing point for me. I was like, I want to go fast. I want to take off deeper. I want to get tubed. That was like the full change for me. Was there a moment for you?
being with Taj, I just remember one time where he was like, go ride your rincon out at Water Goes with me. You're coming with me. And I was like, oh my God, I just had the best session. And also just like kind of feeling, I really have pushed riding smaller boards and bigger waves because I am also so sick and tired of getting dropped in on and snaked by random dudes I don't know in my own home. So like that has been a big push for me.
Yeah.
It's just
to be
like,
able to take off deeper.
yeah, and just to like
And back
at
paddled
least somewhat
guys.
get some respect from dudes I don't even know. Like I can't even tell you the amount of times I get snaked by randoms. I'm not trying to like, but I see it happen all the time. And because Byron is such a busy place,
Yeah.
it's just like really frustrating. And having Taj also out there, he's like, Josie, you're letting these guys do it to you. Like you got to stick up for yourself. So now I'm like, I try to like put myself in that lineup, be one of the few girls in that lineup. And it's so cool having some more girls doing that because like even though, pass can be a wave that you'll see more girls on, but it also can be a wave where there is not that many females.
Especially the best days, the best waves are often caught by guys who have really incredible paddling capability and little boards so they can take off really deep.
Yeah, I have like videos of me surfing the pass, and you look at the lineup and it's just like a sea of men.
Yeah.
I'm in a sea of men, and I just want to put that female energy out there. I want to show people and guys that I am capable, show them that girls are capable, women are capable. And when it's pumping and I'm like, you'll notice there's still not, like sometimes I'll be at the point and I'll be the only girl at the point. If not,
I still get intimidated paddling out there, especially because of the proximity. Like, I do not want to be touching shoulders with people as I'm having to turn and take off, but that's what you have to do.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Yeah.
It is like that. And I have people who have spoken to me in the lineup like, wow, you're getting all the waves. And I'm like, are you saying that because I'm one of two girls at the point and you're just noticing it because I'm a girl? Like, have you just not noticed the same dude getting 6 waves?
Yeah.
I think it's like a conversation like, oh my God, you're getting so many. I'm like, maybe it's just because you're noticing that it's a girl who's getting waves. And I've really, like 2 years ago, you would not catch me surfing the point or sitting at the point. And since having like Taj to push me and Elise to push me, like when,
Yeah.
I just think you've got to be that change. Like there's so many times where I'm like, oh, I don't want to surf the point. I'm just sitting in a sea of men that don't want to give you a chance. I'm like, well, I've just got to be that change.
Yeah. It also speaks to the power of having your crew and like having your community within the community when you're out in the water and how much of a difference that could make in your confidence.
Yeah.
Even for someone as experienced and talented as you are, there's still that question of self-doubt that bubbles up. But if you have people there who can hold you and encourage you, then it's like easier.
Yeah, that's why I love I'm not like the biggest fan of localism, like real strong localism, but I do think that there has to be some sort of ordinance in place.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes I really love when community are out. And I think it's so important when community are out because people start to realize, the lineup starts to realize, whereas when there's not community out, it's just all for one, free for all.
This is such an important topic because we have to, I think as a surfing community, we actually have to take a note out of the song of localism because like somebody needs to take responsibility for crowded lineups, especially if no one takes responsibility, then it's chaos and everyone's getting injured. That's what happens at the pass. That's why people come in with things like leg rope laws and they think that's going to make the lineup safer. But actually what's going to make the lineup safer is if you and me and other people who are locals, it's not like we have to be violent, but we have to call things out when they're unsafe.
There just needs ordinance. There needs people, like I've spoken to Taj about it, I've spoken to Elise about it, that more ordinance and the locals being able to just stand their ground.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
like in the
Byron
airport.
Bay is that is that
see something,
place,
see something, say something.
Yeah, Byron's like always like, what's the motto when you go into Byron? Peace, love, and so everyone's always like, but it's like you need ordinance in a lineup, especially in Byron, because it's like everyone wants to surf, especially these days. I think there's been a huge shift in surfing since COVID. So everyone wants to surf, but no one wants to learn surf etiquette.
Yeah. Well, you would see it doubly both here in Byron and in Siargao. What advice do you have for people who are traveling specifically to Siargao to encourage them to be more respectful to local people?
Just know your limits, really, and have respect for locals. I guess for people traveling to Siargao, it's very easy to identify locals from a foreigner, you know what I mean? And there are a lot of Filipinos who live in Siargao that aren't from Siargao, but you can generally tell. Whereas in Byron, I feel like when you don't have that strong ordinance in the lineup, you can't tell, and that's when it's like super chaotic. So mind you, I have always been the type of person to not say anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to tell someone in a polite way, like, hey, by the way, you know, you just dropped in on my friend who's lived here her whole life.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not something you do to anywhere.
And it doesn't have to be cruel. And that's the difference between localism and what we're talking about, this new localization where we have to take responsibility for our lineups and say something. It can be in a completely kind way, but saying something is our responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's important now to say something and just to find that confidence to say something. For me, it's almost like I look at where Byron and surfing and the past and all of the waves around here will be in 10 to 20 years, and that just freaks me out.
Yeah.
It just freaks me out.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, how do you be that change? Even if it's just minor, you've just got to say something or just, because it can be really frustrating. I know you would know that. Everyone knows that. A tourist would know that. A local would know that. You know, it just is frustrating going into a lineup where there is zero ordinance.
Yeah.
Some people just don't care or want to care. And at the same time, like, I get it. Some people just finish work. Some people just want to enjoy their holiday. Some people just want to be in the water. So it's like, I just think there needs to be a little bit more ordinance.
Yeah. You mentioned this before. Many of us maybe look at your life and go, wow, you have it all. The talent, the beauty, the relationship. But what keeps you up at night?
I'm like such a thinker. I think about things and I think about things so deeply. Luckily, right now, I go to sleep very early, but if you had spoken to me 2 years ago, you would know that I have had incredibly bad insomnia and would sleep like 2 hours a night, 7 nights a week.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I have really bad insomnia, and insomnia, I guess, is just like really strong anxiety. But yeah, like, I know I'm a lucky person and I've been able to live a very blessed life, but humans are humans and we all still have feelings. That's one thing I've always found really hard growing up, is talking about my feelings, because it's almost like anytime I would try to say I felt something, I would have someone tell me I shouldn't feel like that, because look at you, you have a sponsor and you have this. So it's almost made me like decline myself from speaking.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we are humans. We all have feelings. We all feel certain things. And I am someone who actually does struggle with mental health. And
like so many of us.
like, you know, it's just something I've always found very hard to talk to people about, because I've tried and people have, it's almost like deflected it. So I'll get there.
Well, it's brave of you to talk about it.
Yeah, we're all human. We're all living. We're all learning. That's it.
Well, parallel to that internal struggle is this external woman who I know as such an incredible surfer, but also an incredibly generous person. When I think about you pulling people in, especially kids, especially young girls, lifting them up. What's your deepest wish, Jose, for those little girls, the 5 and 6-year-old girls on Siargao who are looking up to you? What's your deepest wish for them as they grow into young women?
I just want them to love themselves. That's like my biggest wish, is just to like grow up feeling confident in their skin and feeling confident to try things. You know, like, it's already cool to see girls pushing themselves, you know, like, you don't really see many young Filipino girls surfing, but now you do. Well, you're starting to. My cousin just started up like a surf school, and it's really cool actually, like, and now I'm seeing on Instagram that there are young girls doing it, but the way they can borrow boards, and these are not just girls, these are boys too, but the way they can borrow boards is by going to school and showing that they've attended school. And I'm just like, yes. I just think, like, if you can push yourself in the right ways and also love the things you do, it's so important. And I just want, like, young girls to feel confident, feel like they are capable, and feel strong. That's like, for me, that's like so important. And I think it's really nice because I take so much of my Filipino side with me and so much of my Western side with me, and I get to like almost share them with each other, like in with projects, with like life and all of these things, like there's so much I've shared in Australia of me, what like makes me happy in the Philippines and how to slow things down. And then I can go to the Philippines and tell the young girls they're so beautiful, and even just like sometimes doing little projects that make big impact, working with Scarlet Period, who do the period underwear and cups and everything. It's just like, it's almost like taking two things from the different cultures and being able to share them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But I feel like that's really what I want to do. Like I want to love both cultures and share both cultures and share different resources from both cultures and make it accessible, I guess. And
who do you think of when you think of the word success?
I don't know really.
Or what do you think of?
I just think of happiness.
Yeah.
I don't look at success as just being completely pouring with money. Even when I'm in the Philippines and like I'll speak to the friends or family and like their struggles are other people's happiness here, or their happiness is other people's struggles. And it's like cool to share different perspectives because I feel like I do have both. And even though it can be challenging, I get both, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty... I used to struggle with it so much, just like clashing ideas, clashing gender roles, clashing, you know, like I would think that I needed to be this wife that had to cook, clean and do everything. And then like my Western side is like, you got this, you can do whatever you want. Just like,
how
you know, whatever.
interesting.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to navigate, like just your different cultures and different roles and even conversations that you can have over there that you can't have here and vice versa. It's so interesting.
So what's next? What are you dreaming up that's going to coalesce your cultures?
I don't really know. I feel like I just want to be me and be confident in what I'm doing and try to make change or impact and give love, be love, but yeah, stay true to who I am, because I feel like it's like I said earlier, even for me sometimes, like I feel like everyone's always chasing the next big thing, that we've got to step back and realize we're actually already there. I mean, it's good to dream big, and I will always dream big, but it's a conversation I will have with Taj where I'm like, I need to do this, I need to be this, I need to do this. And he's like, just look at your life now, look what you have achieved. You've really got to like applaud for yourself for what you've achieved, because it's so easy to just keep chasing things, and that's like the society we are in now. It's like more fast-paced than I believe it should be. So naturally we fall into that rhythm.
Thanks for listening with us today. If you like what you heard, please consider sharing an episode with a friend. Our editor this season is the multi-talented, absolute legend, Ben Jake Alexander. The soundtrack was composed by Shannon Soul Carroll, with additional tunes by Dave and Ben. We have a few new Water People experiments this season. You can find every episode of the podcast on our Water People YouTube page, or subscribe to our very infrequent newsletter to get book recommendations, questions we're pondering, and behind-the-scenes glimpses into recording the podcast and more via our website, waterpeoplepodcast.com. We'll be continuing today's conversation on Instagram, where we're at Water People Podcast.